I had just moved into my new apartment, a cozy little place on the outskirts of town. It was a quaint, old building with a lot of character, perfect for someone like me who enjoyed solitude and a slower pace of life. The first few days were blissful. The silence was a welcome change from the constant hustle and bustle of the city. But that bliss was short-lived. One evening, I was curled up on the couch with a book, enjoying the quiet. The sun had set, and the apartment was bathed in the soft glow of a few scattered lamps. That's when I heard it, the sound of footsteps, faint and deliberate, coming from the hallway. I froze, my eyes darting to the door. My heart pounded in my chest as I strained to listen. The footsteps continued, slow and steady, coming closer and closer. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. There was no response, just the relentless sound of footsteps. I grabbed a kitchen knife and cautiously made my way to the hallway. The footsteps stopped abruptly, and an eerie silence fell over the apartment. I checked every room, but there was no one there. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew better. The next few nights were worse. The footsteps became a nightly occurrence, always at the same time, always the same slow, deliberate pace. I barely slept, my nerves frayed from the constant fear. I started hearing other noises too, soft whispers, faint giggles, and the sound of furniture being moved. But every time I investigated, I found nothing. One night, the footsteps were louder, more insistent. I could feel a cold presence in the apartment, like someone was watching me. I decided I had enough and called the landlord. He listened patiently and then said something that sent a chill down my spine. "You're not the first tenant to complain about strange noises," he said. "There's a story that the original owner of the building, a woman named Eliza, died there under mysterious circumstances. Some say she never left." I hung up the phone, my mind racing. That night, I decided to stay up and confront whatever was haunting me. I sat on the couch, clutching the knife, my eyes fixed on the hallway. The footsteps started again, louder and faster this time. I could feel the air grow colder, a heavy presence filling the room. I stood up, ready to face whatever was coming. The footsteps stopped right in front of me, and I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I spun around, slashing the knife through the air, but there was no one there. The room was empty. I dropped the knife and ran out of the apartment, not stopping until I was outside. I moved out the next day, leaving behind the cozy little apartment with its dark history. I never found out what was haunting me, but I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. Even now, years later, I can still hear those footsteps in my dreams, a constant reminder of the unseen guest that terrorized me. It started with the mirror. I had just inherited my grandmother's house, a beautiful old Victorian mansion filled with antiques and memories. The mirror was one of those antiques, a large, ornate thing that hung in the hallway. I always found it a bit unsettling, the way it seemed to reflect more than just my image. The first time I noticed something strange, I was cleaning the house, trying to make it feel more like home. I passed by the mirror and saw a shadow move behind me. I turned around, but there was nothing there. I chalked it up to my imagination and continued cleaning. But the shadows kept appearing, always just out of sight, always in the mirror. One night, I was walking past the mirror on my way to bed when I saw a face. It wasn't my reflection. It was a woman's face, pale and gaunt, with dark, hollow eyes. She was staring at me from the mirror, her expression twisted with rage. I screamed and ran to my room, slamming the door shut behind me. I spent the rest of the night huddled under the covers, too terrified to sleep. The next morning, I tried to rationalize what I had seen. Maybe it was a trick of the light, or maybe I was just overtired. But deep down, I knew something was wrong with that mirror. I decided to cover it with a sheet, hoping that would put an end to the strange occurrences. For a while, it seemed to work. The house was quiet, and I started to feel a bit more at ease. But then the nightmares began. Every night, I dreamed of the woman in the mirror. She would chase me through the house, her face twisted with anger, her hollow eyes filled with malice. I would wake up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. One night, I woke up to the sound of whispering. I sat up in bed, straining to listen. The whispers were coming from the hallway, from behind the sheet covering the mirror. I grabbed a flashlight and cautiously made my way to the hallway. The whispers grew louder as I approached the mirror. My hands trembled as I reached for the sheet. I pulled the sheet off, and there she was, standing in the mirror, her eyes locked on mine. She reached out, her hand pressing against the glass. I could see her mouth moving, forming words I couldn't hear. I stepped back, my heart racing. She started banging on the glass, her mouth open in a silent scream. I ran to the garage and grabbed a hammer. I returned to the hallway, my hands shaking. I swung the hammer at the mirror, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. The woman's face disappeared, but I could still feel her presence, cold and malevolent. I moved out the next day, leaving the shattered mirror and the memories of my grandmother's house behind. But I know she's still there, trapped in the shards of that mirror, waiting for someone else to find her. It was supposed to be a fresh start. I had just bought a charming old house in the countryside, far away from the chaos of the city. The house was perfect, except for one thing, the basement. It was dark and musty, with a single, flickering light bulb and an old wooden staircase that creaked with every step. I avoided it as much as possible. One night, I was watching TV when I heard a noise coming from the basement. It was a faint scratching sound, like something trying to claw its way out. I muted the TV and listened. The scratching continued, growing louder and more frantic. My heart raced as I grabbed a flashlight and made my way to the basement door. I opened the door and peered down the stairs. The scratching stopped abruptly, and an eerie silence fell over the house. I took a deep breath and descended the stairs, the wooden steps creaking under my weight. The air grew colder as I reached the bottom, and I could feel a chill creeping up my spine. I shone the flashlight around the basement, but there was nothing there, just old furniture and boxes of junk. I was about to head back upstairs when I noticed something strange. One of the walls looked different, as if it had been hastily patched up. I walked over and ran my hand along the wall. It felt hollow. I found a crowbar and started prying at the wall. The old wood gave way easily, revealing a hidden room behind it. I shone the flashlight into the room and gasped. It was filled with old, dusty furniture, and in the center of the room was a large, wooden crate. The scratching noise started again, louder and more frantic. I walked over to the crate and pried it open. Inside was a small, wooden box, intricately carved with strange symbols. The scratching was coming from inside the box. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the box. Finally, I took a deep breath and opened it. Inside was a small, withered hand, clutching a piece of parchment. I screamed and dropped the box, backing away in horror. The hand started to move, the fingers twitching and scratching at the air. I ran up the stairs and slammed the basement door shut behind me. I called the police, but when they arrived, the basement was empty. The hidden room, the crate, and the box were all gone. They looked at me like I was crazy, but I knew what I had seen. I moved out the next day, leaving the house and its dark secrets behind. Even now, I can still hear the scratching in my nightmares, a constant reminder of the horror that lurked in that basement. I'll never know what was in that box, but I know it's something that should have stayed buried.